So this is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
I'm Nancy Richards. Tired.
We are tired old ladies here.
Yes.
I am
So,
too. I'm sort of, on the cusp of hitting the pillow too, but there's some things that we got to talk about, unfortunately. I didn't watch the State of the Union. I know you did, Nance, but I got the roundup from the Daily podcast from the New York Times, and I know, the gist of what was said, but what were some of the big points that he had, and why weren't they true? Why were they a lie?
well, first of all, it was 2 hours, so
Oh, I
um,
know.
it was long. It was long-winded. He blew off a lot of wind. Not only does he have wind coming from his backside, he had it coming out of his mouth.
Well, I
So,
noticed there were some people actually I noticed on social media when he was coming down the ramp. You sort of saw the sour look on his face on their faces when he passed, and I don't think it was like a partisan thing. I think it was like, ooh, this guy. Ugh.
well, let's talk about the people on the aisle.
Mhm.
The one thing that our Congresswoman is extremely great at is she gets there early and situates herself. She always gets on the aisle for like, remember when she got up to Biden
Yeah,
and she gave her business card? She was right there. And she's, of course, was up there it was funny at the beginning, they had like a overview, um, and I saw this like lone woman in a white suit. I go, that looks like Nicole. It probably is. And it was. She's like lurking. And and it was kind of comical, but what was more comical was at the end, when he's done, she like beelines him in the front. Like she's not in the back, she's now in the front. And she gets like a self-made like she does a selfie with him. He doesn't really pose with her, but she kind of does the he's walking and she makes her own selfie. And then you can see her like lurking behind him. It was almost like very stalkish. It was funny. You just see like her head bopping up with like security behind in front of her.
well, the whole thing was her whole performance. We'll get to the Al Green stuff in a little bit, but
Yeah.
but her whole performance reeked of pick me, pick me, pick me.
Yeah.
And this is somebody who is acting out of desperation. She is clinging to any power and influence she has. This is somebody who definitely knows that she is that the clock is ticking for her
Yeah.
because the redistricting case is still being considered. Again, I don't think even this Supreme Court, stacked with Trump appointees, is going to step in and save her, and I think she knows that. And so she is looking to gain any flicker of influence that she has left in Trump world, because when she loses, she wants to have a job somewhere. She wants to be in the administration. She wants to be a lobbyist somewhere. She wants to be in Trump's good graces. She
Oh,
doesn't
and,
want,
and
she does, well, she doesn't want to
I
be in exile like Elise Stefanik and Marjorie Taylor
no,
Greene.
she's not going to be. She's very good at, she's a politician, that's what she is. She's not an activist, she's a politician, very good at keeping herself employed. So you're absolutely right. If she doesn't get reelected, she will find work doing
Oh, she
something.
will, and she'll be at some PAC in Trump world, and I don't think she's important enough to maybe get a job in the administration, because I think even Trump realized, I think even Trump knows that she's pathetic. Even Trump knows that she's obsequious, and Trump exploits that in people. Trump exploits his that people's want to be in proximity to power and influence. And she always has had that. She has always wanted to be.
Sucked
She's,
up the heat.
yeah, well, and I don't mean this in a sexist way, but with Nicole, it's, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like she's never been
Oh, it
somebody
makes me feel
who
bad for her when you say that.
well, it's true. She's never going to be in leadership in the Republican conference. She doesn't have the personality. She's got the charisma of a doorknob. She is never going to ascend anywhere beyond that. She may run for some other office here on Staten Island. I think she knows she has limits, and which is why she wants to be in some kind of, pro-Trump
Uh,
super PAC or somewhere on the outskirts of Trump world when she loses. And so and so I think that was part of her explanation for why she's standing behind him with the thumbs up. She was so pathetic. It was so uh
I,
it was
you know,
so nauseating. It was
yeah.
so vomit
It was
inducing.
funny. Like I was just like, oh, I wish I had editing skills. I would love to like I just pictured it like being on like one of the talk shows, like her like stalking him and then going and bringing up footage from like Biden, how she got up there and stalked, and then, like how she just seems to always be on the side and going, hello. I mean, there were other people doing that too, but that was,
She made a show of herself doing it. She
yeah.
made a show of herself doing it. And perhaps, a terrible moment even for her was when Al Green, congressman from Texas, uh, holds up a sign as Trump is walking into the chamber that says Black people are not apes. Uh, and he raises a ruckus the way that he did last year, and inevitably he's, escorted out of the chamber. And as he's being escorted out of the chamber, Nicole is in the rafters saying, "Yeah, get out, get out." And
Well, did you hear? I read in the advance, she claims that she did not see the poster. That
oh,
was her response to the.
oh,
So what was she telling him to get out for?
she's so full of shit. She saw the
Yeah.
poster. She knew exactly what she
But
was
that was
doing.
that was her response
Yeah.
to that. But that wasn't the whole that but that was, our Congresswoman's part in the State of the Union. But
Well, it was
this
well, that moment, I would say, I was just saying, there was a side-by-side moment of that moment where she's basically heckling Al Green, telling him to get out of the chamber with their thumb hit the road jack.
yeah, and then there's the Little Rock Nine.
Picture
Uh
from the Little Rock Nine of these girls getting Elizabeth Eckford
yeah.
getting hurled racial epithets by Hazel Massery at the Little Rock Nine, and that's very much what it's giving. And what I really, besides the obvious embarrassment of it, it also just reaffirms people's already negative stereotype of Staten Island. Because if I could sum up visually what people think of Staten Island, it would be that moment
Yeah. Yeah.
right there.
I definitely would. So it was it was not a good screenshot, Nicole. So um
And you would think somebody who
but because the
is
other screenshot we got was her with the two thumbs up, like when he
that was
walked
almost
by.
that was awful in an even, in a
So
different way. That
she
was,
was
yeah.
very animated, and I don't think it helped her.
No,
So
it didn't. And, I just think you would think somebody who is very likely going to get redistricted to include more moderate or liberal constituents would seek to moderate herself. But no, she's going to
yeah,
lean.
I don't get that. Like, who's advising her? Because um uh, yeah, because I thought about that because I was thinking, Nicole could still win. There is a substantial amount of Republicans, and she's also an incumbent. So that also carries some weight, in a reelection. So so why is she I would think she would, yeah, become a little bit more moderate. I think some people might say I'd rather have Nicole because she's there already, blah blah blah. But that photograph certainly doesn't help her. Her sticking, with MAGA, election denier, things like that. Um, that stuff's just not going to help her. So
Well, no, and
I
well, no, she's actually what she's going to do now is that she is going to bet on that the crazies will come out and vote for her. So she's going to lean into the crazies. She's going to try to upstage Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Anna Paulina Luma in being crazy. And so she's going to try and, be just as ghoulish, if not more. The problem is that she doesn't have the personality those women have. Those women are at least charismatic about doing it. She the part that's really cringy about when she does it is that it's inauthentic. You know that it's bullshit. You know that she knows better. And so and that she is every picture she takes, her smile is forced,
Yeah.
and
So,
it included the one like this with the foot with the thumbs up, and so it's cringy for her. It doesn't work for you, Nicole. Just and as far as like being a moderate, she's probably her likely opponent is very likely going to be Congressman Dan Goldman. And
but
so there's two incumbents running against each other essentially.
well, also too, if you look at Staten Island politics, moderate Republicans do very well. I mean, look at someone like Jimmy Otto. And then the other guy who was on the South Shore, I liked him. He was a
Blue
state
tobacco,
senator.
blue tobacco.
Tobacco, yeah. Um, you know, these were, and they all worked well together. Like, they seem to have worked, Democrat, Republican, and I'm just surprised she's not really more in that type of camp, especially now. But we're supposed to be talking about the State of the Union, but we've kind of geared more on her reelection. So I don't know if you want to, how much you want to talk about this.
Well, we could talk about this, but I think we could sum up at least Trump's part of the State of the Union by saying it was all bullshit. It was all a lie. Like I think of that moment with Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny when he gets up and says everything that guy just said is bullshit in the courtroom. That's and so that would be my rebuttal
Well,
to it, but we'll talk about it a little bit.
well, first of all, it was long, and there were some things in, you know, th- every state of the president has guests, and he took the opportunity to give out a numerous amounts of awards, like a lot. There was a couple of soldiers who got the Congressional Medal of Honor. There was a guy who got a Purple Heart. Um, there was a Korean War veteran who's very old. I think he got the Congressional Medal of Honor. Then the hockey guys showed up. Um, and then, of course, there was a few people affected by violence from immigrants, of course, to prove immigrants, are committing all these crimes. We have to get them out. So his parade of guests were um, it, well, they deflected from the fact that he has the lowest approval rating he's had, and he didn't really have any policy. He didn't talk much about policy. He talks about this healthcare plan he had, but there is nothing in the works, aside from the fact that he's talking about reducing prescription drugs, and he's calling it the Trump prescription plan. He talked a little bit about that. He talked a little bit about Iran. He didn't mention anything about, oh, he took credit for the capturing of El Mencho from in Mexico. Now, I know we shared um, information, but Mexico was the one that went in, the president, and initiated um, that takeover. Took them
Yeah, well,
out.
and actually, the New York Times, the daily podcast today, I think I sent it to you earlier. Basically, they said that, Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, was basically going to go after the cartels anyway. Trump
Well,
putting
no,
pressure on her
no,
not
they
to do
didn't.
this,
The Daily didn't say that. The Daily said that he had a lot of influence on her decision making.
yeah,
And I'll give him credit for that in regards to pushing her to do that. But he gave himself credit. He said we took out
mhm,
a cut. And it's like, no, you gave your CIA gave some information.
yeah.
You didn't do that. Well, once again, him lying, taking credit for something he didn't, necessarily do. But it was 2 hours of giving out medals, um, and Simon says stand, Simon says sit down. Um, and then he tried to kind of uh, shame the Democrats for not standing. He says, and if you believe that we should, protect Americans, everybody should stand. And the Democrats were not, because there was more to that phrase. And
Well, because, we don't believe in protecting Americans by killing Americans in the middle of the
yeah,
street, like you did in Minneapolis. You killed two Americans. And not only that, there was a teacher in Georgia who was killed because ICE was pursuing somebody, even though they have a no pursue policy.
right.
And they don't chase people. That's not what they do. That's not what they're supposed to do. And they chased somebody in a car, and their car hit this teacher's car, and she died. And
Yeah.
so they are, so we want to protect Americans, but that's not what's happening. You're actually causing harm to Americans and killing them in some cases.
So let's talk about at the State of the Union who wasn't there. You weren't there. You didn't watch it.
No, I
Uh,
didn't.
but there was also some, like, not all the Supreme Court justices were there. Sotomayor, I didn't see Ketanji Brown.
No.
Um, I saw Kagan. Um, I don't think John Roberts was
Oh,
John
he was
Roberts
there.
there?
He was there.
Um,
So I could tell you the ones that weren't there. So Alito wasn't there.
yeah,
Thomas wasn't there. Jackson wasn't there. Sotomayor wasn't there, and Gorsuch
yeah.
wasn't there.
Okay, yeah,
And
perfect.
so, which was interesting. Alito said after he had this awkward encounter one year with Obama after Citizens United, where uh, Obama chastised the court for that decision in his State of the Union that year. And Alito was observed saying, "Oh, that's not true." He was mouthing the words, "Oh, that's not true." And so he hasn't been to one since. Uh, Thomas didn't go. I'm not surprised that Ketanji Brown Jackson didn't go. I saw her
I'm
face at the
surprised
inaugural.
Thomas didn't go. I mean, Thomas was,
Yeah.
he votes for him for everything.
Oh, he does, but I'm sure he was maybe on one of his Harlan Crow funded, excursions, perhaps. And Gorsuch was one of the justices who ruled against him in the tariff case, and so I think that he probably wanted to avoid that kind of awkward encounter, if I had to guess.
I don't think he ripped into them very much publicly during the State of the Union. He mentioned that he didn't like the decision, but he didn't say some of the vile things, he posted. I didn't see AOC.
Oh,
Um,
she said she was boycotting. She
yeah, I
said
didn't
she was
see her.
boycotting, and I don't know if she went. There was a rally outside the For the People State of the Union. I didn't know if
Yeah.
I don't know if she was there, but she did. She did say she wasn't going to go.
Um, but there was some people out, and but for the most part, the Democrats sat. They didn't. They did cheer on for the hockey team. Um, but pretty much they didn't stand for anything that he said. Um, and then there was some shouting. He made some disgusting remarks about Somalians, and of course, that ignited um,
Well, he
uh,
wanted to.
Omar
Yeah,
yeah,
he
Omar
wanted to
to
bait
say
them.
something, and also the other representative from Minnesota.
Rashida Tlaib.
Yeah, and she was like, mentioning like ice killed but it wasn't a lot, but it was they did have a little bit of a
They did
but it was
heckle him.
but
Yeah.
it was in reaction to what he said about um immigrants. It was disgusting. And then he did this weird, then of course there's always the what the fuck is wrong with this guy, because he does something odd. Like he was like, we're winning so much, oh my God, we're winning so much. I don't think we can even we don't know what to do with all this winning. Like that's what he said. Like it was weird. It's like what's up with this guy? Like this is where like late night TV comics come in. Like he's always upset Jimmy Kimmel's making fun of him. Well, stop doing stupid shit like that, you
Hmm.
know? Like he's like, "Oh, we're winning. We're winning so much." Like and there was like this awkward laughter, like, going, "What?"
Well, I'm sure the SEALs on his side, had to laugh. I'm sure
Yeah,
I'm,
definitely.
I'm sure the SEALs had to laugh because, That's like, when you when your boss is giving you the raise, you have to laugh at all of their jokes.
Mhm. That's
Um,
for sure.
and so,
So,
yes, and for the record, I told you, but I don't think I told our listeners. I did not watch because like I said, I could think of more fun ways to be lied to for 2 hours. And so I watched the Golden Girls. I saw a little bit of what happened on social media. I got the feeds that way. That's how I saw what happened with Nicole and Al Green through various social media accounts like Midas Touch and the Washington Post and
oh
some
yeah,
other.
I know you. You didn't let go of that phone, so you were
Yeah.
looking that up. So,
Yeah, so I saw some things there that, kind of kept me in the loop, even though I wasn't watching.
well, I always watch. I as long as I've been teaching, I've always watched the State of the Union because it was a homework assignment. Um, and but this time it was a little late. Was it later this year? Because for some reason I recall doing it for government. But now we're in economics, so
Yeah, no, it was no, this is around the time that they do it. Yeah, they
okay.
do it.
I don't know why I always because I always did it as an assignment. Um, but yeah, so I just always watch, and I just always watch regardless of who it is, and even though it's him, but yeah, I
Yeah,
wanted to see like I wanted to see who was there. Um, and it was long. I got up and did some other things around the house, and the TV was on, so I missed a few nuances. But this is the other thing that I kind of creeps me out a little bit about him. When when the Democrats were not kind of standing or, kind of not reacting at all to what he was saying, he had some really nasty looks that he gave to that side of the room. And it was kind of frightening, like I'll get you kind of look.
Well,
And
Mary Trump, his niece, I think she put it really well. Like the title of the book, the first book she ever wrote was Too Much and Never Enough. Like he does a whole lot. He does everything. He bulldozes through everything. He puts his name on everything. He engages in naked corruption. He has all the support of sycophants like Nicole Malliotakis, and yet it's never enough. It's never enough validation. It's never enough aggrandizement. It's never enough uh, greed. It's never enough power. It's never enough corruption. So he does too much, but it's never enough. And so I think that that's part of the dynamic you're describing there. Even though he hates them, he wants their approval. He wants their validation.
yeah,
He wants them to
yeah,
cheer for him. He is a deeply wounded, insecure, malignant
he is. He
narcissist.
is. He is. And he is. So, we got the State of the Union and then we had and somebody said that they think he went on that long so people wouldn't stay to listen to the Virginia rebuttal. And that might have been the case because it was 11 o'clock
Yeah,
and it was and the other thing I noticed, which was interesting, is after the State of the Union you have like commentary for a while. The major channels weren't talking. I was MSN, it was just more the cable, like
yeah,
MSNBC and PBS had some, like a little panel afterwards. But when I went to the Channel 2 and 7, they had their local news on.
yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think they probably had just, they usually do that. I've never seen the rebuttal on a network channel ever. I've always
I
seen,
did. I like CBS used to have a panel. They had like John Dickerson and
yeah.
Major Garrett and Nora O'Donnell, and at least I thought they did. I just always because I liked that panel. I used to always look to Channel 2. I like their commentary, but they're all gone now. So
Oh yeah, and that leads us perfectly into the next thing. So just to for our listeners, there's been a bidding war. Warner Brothers, the famous film studio, has been for sale for a while now, and Netflix originally put in a bid, and that was going to go through. But then Paramount also wanted to put in competing bids for Warner Brothers as well. Now, there were trade-offs on either side. If Netflix was going to win this battle in terms of the bidding war for Warner Brothers, the Screen Actors Guild, the unions who we support, and the Writers Guild, who we also support, they didn't want Netflix to win that battle because they were fearful that Netflix would eventually phase out the movie theater type of model and eventually just do all streaming. And of course, that doesn't work for most of their union members. And so they didn't want Netflix to win that. However, Paramount is not the hero in this either. This is sort of an alien versus predator story. There's no good side here. So that was the Netflix side. Now, Paramount is owned by,
Major corporations.
yeah, Paramount is owned by the Ellisons. And the Ellisons, Larry and David, are the same crew that took over CBS and installed Barry Weiss and has now turned it into Fox News with Sunday Morning Charm. And basically, I believe that they want control. Paramount wants control of Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers owns CNN. And the president has had a hard on for CNN for a long time. And it goes,
I don't know why they're not that bad on him, like they have some conservative talk on there. I don't get it.
and I think that was also part of the reason why they went after Don Lemon is because Don Lemon, was critical of him in the first term and, was every night making fun of him and being critical of him. And so that's part of the reason why he went after Don Lemon, I think. And but in any case, they want to turn CNN into Fox News, into Newsmax, into One American News Network. And there was a bidding war back and forth between Paramount and Netflix. Ted Sarandos, who is the Netflix CEO, went to the White House to make his case. And the role that the White House has in all of this is that it's Trump's Justice Department and FCC who must approve the merger, and
Yeah.
the FEC who must approve the merger. And so the undertones of that meeting were basically to Netflix, if you don't get rid of former Ambassador Susan Rice from the Obama administration, she served in the Biden administration, frequent critic of Donald Trump. If you don't get rid of her from your board, I will not approve this. I will direct the FEC and the Justice Department not to approve this merger. And so evidently that either worked or Ted Sarandos said, go fuck yourself because they left that meeting and basically Netflix dropped their bid for Warner Brothers.
So,
And so that clears the way for Paramount to kind of swoop in and turn it into state TV. Uh,
well, we'll have the Disney Channel and Warner Brothers. We'll have Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse.
yes,
There's your
they'll
two
be
stations.
and they'll be in MAGA hats. And
Yeah.
they'll be in MAGA hats.
MAGA ears.
Yeah, they'll
MAGA
be they'll be in MAGA hats. And so uh I obviously think there are real concerns here as far as constitutional issues, free speech, free press. All of that is a big issue. But I also think that this is an issue because this is not free market capitalism. I heard Republicans on Staten Island all last year crow about Zohran Mamdani's city-owned grocery stores that he was proposing, and yet not a word about these kind of kleptocratic moves which with the president inserting himself
But
into
that's
the
who's
dealings
doing it.
of private business.
Republicans have a hard on. It's okay if it's corporate, but if it's,
But this is not corporate though. This is the government. This is the president sticking his hand into the
no,
dealings of the corporations.
they see it as corporate because Donald Trump is a businessman. Well,
Ask
that's
well,
everyone's excuse. Sorry, I'm readjusting my comfort zone here. No, but people like, I like Donald Trump because he's a businessman. He knows how to get things done. So, yeah, he's a businessman. He's on the take,
well,
and
he is
and
on
they
the take,
and
yeah.
they give a pass to people like him because, they think, oh, well, he's a businessman. So they don't see him as the government,
Well, he is the
or
government.
he is the government.
He
Yeah.
is, oh, he is the government. And, this is not, if I heard one more word about socialism and communism because of anything Zohran Mamdani is proposing, uh,
Oh,
this is more government control over aspects of the economy that no president has ever asserted. And uh, he's picking winners and losers, and he is pressuring these big media companies to moderate their content, or they won't have a smooth legal process in something like a merger. That is not free market capitalism. That is a fascist kleptocracy. That is all of the things that they claim to fear about Zohran Mamdani and the left and communism and cancel culture are things they are doing. Every accusation is a confession of their own
they don't
behavior.
see it as that because of the people who are actually doing the controlling. It's okay. It's okay because of who's doing it. It's not okay if the left is doing it. If the left is saying, look, you shouldn't say that because it's inappropriate, they're,
Well,
they're
well, we're
canceling.
saying that, but we're not sticking our hands into businesses to say, if you say that, then we're not going to approve your merger. We're not creating policies or laws or directing government agencies to go after late night comedy hosts the way they did to Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, one could argue. They are so we're not doing any of that. What they are doing is everything they've accused us of doing. They're doing that, but then amping it up more because they have institutional power. They have control over all of these agencies and institutions that approve these mergers and monitor content like the FCC. That dickless Brendan Carr, who runs the FCC, is the one who is asserting this bullshit free time rule on late night hosts when it comes to talk show guests. And so, like I said, every accusation is a confession. Everything they have ever said the left was going to do, every power they said we'd ever abuse, they are doing it, and they are doing it 100-fold.
Yes, they are. So is Paramount now going to buy Warner
It's
Brothers?
pretty much it's cleared the way now. That Netflix, as far as I can tell, was their only competitor as far as this for a buyer here.
Well, look, I'm not as alarmed. This is not. uh, we've just seen more and more our media, get more and more condensed. And I remember 10 years ago doing a conglomerate photograph of media and all the stations that were together for Disney and, who was in Disney. And the kids were surprised. They were like, oh, all these people are under one umbrella. I'm like, yeah. And that was 10 years ago. So it's even worse. So um, I'm I'm not surprised. We saw that big change in CBS as a result of it. So now you move to other types of media. A lot of the younger people aren't even watching network television. So they're getting their media from other sources. My concerns are types of sources. Where are they getting their information from in regards to what's truthful? I find these days when people are like, where do you get that from? Is like, I read it in the Times. And then when they're dismissive of me automatically, I'm like, oh, that's scary. Like, look, you can say that the New York Times is more liberal and it's biased, but they don't print lies.
Well, no, and that's their editorial section, not their news section. And so
Yeah.
it's not their news section. And Fox News, people who get their news from Fox News had to pay almost $1 billion for their bullshit on the 2020 election,
Yeah.
because it was discovered in the discovery process that they knew all along that what Trump was saying about the election was untrue, and they repeated it anyway. And so again, every accusation is a confession. And so I think we have to just continue as part of the left and as the Democratic Party as a whole and the resistance. We have to keep pointing that out to people. We have to hold their feet to the fire on that. So we should not ever let them get away with saying the liberal media or the biased media or the media is out to get us, or because where is it? All of the media, both traditional and in these new technology spaces, are all allies of the president. And
Yeah,
so, how could we say, how could you say with a straight face that this is, the liberal media or biased media? Bullshit. That's not real at all. And so I would encourage also our listeners, and we were talking about this a while back, maybe, doing a show just on the podcast we listen to are the ones that have credible information, even if they have a particular perspective. And so I think we should do that. And
like I listen to Dan Abrams, who I think is very middle of the road. I don't think
mhm.
he's liberal at all. Um, but he, and then there's I got this from, there's the dad briefs I like
Yes.
on Instagram, and he recommended this news source, and it's a paid subscription, but it's called Ground News, and they show like they'll post a news article, and then they will be where does it side on, is it more biased, on which side? And their information is also, they put it on a scale like where it's, is this more of a, conservative point of view, or a liberal point of view, or a central point of view. I like it. So it's good news.
Yeah. And, I think one of the reasons why, we need to do that is because news is, depending on the source, it's always going to be filtered and it may be edited. It may be tailored towards confirmation bias on either side. So those are really important things to consider as it relates to just the media and as well as who's behind it, as well as what the agenda is of the people who are controlling these major news organizations. And so we're definitely going to stay on top of it. But in other news, we definitely had Hillary Clinton. We had the House Republicans descended on New York today, specifically in Chappaqua, New York, to question Hillary Clinton about any
Oh,
knowledge.
wait. Okay. Just before the thought, I was looking at the other news source I wanted to talk about is Belly of the Beast. That's the
Okay.
other one that I use a lot. And they also very good at reporting on what's going on in Cuba.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right,
Yeah.
back to Hillary.
Yeah, so the House Republicans descended on Chappaqua today to question Hillary Clinton in their Epstein probe. Now, she released before the hearing even began, she released a blistering statement about how, and she's right, as far as I can tell, that this is just a distraction from the fact that Trump has mentioned there thousands of times in these files. And Hillary Clinton is mentioned here, but not having any direct relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. It's
Right.
she is mentioned, a lot of these files are taking place when she's running for office. So there's stuff about her campaigns there, but she's never once had any real relationship to
Well, she also
Jeffrey
wanted it
Epstein.
public. She wanted those that, hearing public, and they didn't. I think the only reason why they had her is they needed to satisfy that QAnon, um,
The
like
Pizzagate.
the freaks who were like, she's eating the pets, or what is it? She's eating pizza and pedophilia. I don't know. Remember like that whole pizza scam?
Oh
And I
yeah, well
think that's to satisfy them that they interviewed her.
yeah,
Honestly, that's why I think they've only like just interviewed Bill. Bill was the dog,
yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
sorry,
I think,
Guillermo, not
yeah. Well, no, they interviewed her, but, and the thing that they said about Hillary was that she was drinking the blood of children to restore youth to herself. But that obviously was bullshit. It's not true. And she didn't have any relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, and they know that. And she said that. She said she came out of the hearing, maybe an hour ago and took some questions from the press. And she basically said, I answered the same questions over and over and
Yeah.
over again, it seemed like. And she said, and I was following it today, that there was a brief moment where they had to stop the hearing because Lauren Boebert, who was in this hearing,
Yeah,
took
she
a
took a photo.
she took a photo of Hillary Clinton and sent it to Benny Johnson, who is, by the way, a closeted gay right-wing influencer, and took a picture and he posted it. And so her lawyers rightfully said, we have to stop this because we agreed if this is going to be, if we're taking pictures, this needs to be fully open. And
Right. Um, and and then when Lauren Boebert was questioned about it as she was leaving, she said, "Oh, I got some new software." She like both like, I was like, "Oh, it was disappointing because I thought she gave a good showing on Bill Maher, and now she's outright lying that you took that picture, you knew what you were doing."
of
So
course she did. Hi, Guillermo.
Guillermo's now giving a guest appearance,
He's our
which is
he's our
fine. I
guest.
look like crap, so you look better, Guillermo. Um, But yeah, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, she's going back to herself. Um, and which is baloney because they didn't want to show this stupid circus that they had to do for the QAnon people. So they didn't want to make it public, and that's why I think they put it behind closed doors. Um, and and then Lauren probably took that photograph to give like the right wing media, like, see, we did interview her. She was there. Like, I don't know. Or just
I
to give them
think,
something to feed off of.
well, I think interviewing Hillary Clinton and they're interviewing Bill Clinton tomorrow. I
But he's
think,
different. Bill
yeah,
Clinton, you know, had a
Bill,
relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He should be interviewed.
yeah, Bill Clinton has some splaining to do.
Yeah,
But I also think that interviewing them, but not issuing a subpoena to Donald Trump, who's mentioned far more
yeah.
in these files, is rather, I wouldn't say it's curious because we know the reason. They're just trying to deflect.
What's
But
this stuff that there's this young kid that there's something in the files that they found that they have uh taken like the DOJ
oh,
hit.
we can get to that. I just want to finish on this point though. That's actually that was a sworn statement and we'll talk about it. But this was the reason they're interviewing Bill and Hillary Clinton, among others, is because they just want to, this is what they do, like in your Facebook comments, Nancy. They first deny and then they say, what about? Well, what about this one or that one or him or her or whoever? And then they eventually go from the stage from denial to whataboutism to
I,
so what he did it, others have done worse. And then yeah, he did it. What are you going to do about it, basically? That's the
I
story
don't
is.
have a problem with them interviewing Bill Clinton. I don't have a problem with that at all. But they also need to interview Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So they
Donald Trump
do.
is
He's in the files. Um, and he's in the files and he needs to be under oath. And I don't think he knows what that means to be under oath, but he needs it, yeah. So um and if Hillary was a formality because her name comes up, okay. But that how long was that thing today? It was like a couple of hours.
3 or 4 hours.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it was just a way to also, diss her. So they got their stupid little, but here's the other thing too about the Republicans is that when they create these committees, they don't find anything, you
No,
know?
they don't. Well, actually,
January 6th committee found shit, you know?
yes, they
They had
did.
they had clear evidence of stuff. But here they're just like, damn, we don't have anything on them, like
And over and with the Clintons, it's over and over and over again for 40 years. We had Ken Starr, who, by the way, was one of Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers as well. Uh, issued this special report on Whitewater, a deal that perhaps the Clintons made too much money on. But guess what? They were exonerated. Uh, when you had Hillary Clinton go before another congressional committee about Benghazi, The
And the
attack
email.
on the Benghazi embassy in 2012. She sat there for 12 hours at that point, and Trey Gowdy, who was the committee chair back then, who's now a Fox News personality, he also cleared her of any wrongdoing. James Comey, another Republican, FBI director, opened an investigation into her emails, and while he fucked up the way he did it, cleared her of wrongdoing. And so, how much more do you want as to get from this woman? You defeated her. She lost in 2016. So, what more do you possibly want? You just want to continue the humiliation. You want to engage in whataboutism to deflect from the fact that Donald Trump is in those files thousands of times, if not a million. Jamie Raskin said the unredacted version has a million mentions of Donald Trump. Uh,
I'm more curious about the stuff that's in there that they're hiding.
well,
I
yeah.
'Cause we're stating the obvious.
Mhm.
I want to know about that.
Well, yeah, there's one accusation that the DOJ evidently left out of the files they released, and it was from a 13-year-old girl at the time. Her name was Katie Johnson, that's an alias. And she accuses Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein of raping her, and of sexually assaulting her. Now,
That's
I'm
in there.
the but her sworn statement was not. The accusation itself is in there as part of like a spreadsheet, but
But
the
where is
sworn
her
statement,
sworn statement?
well, her sworn statement is probably is probably in Pam Bondi's fireplace. Like it's probably gone by now. But actually, this accusation and that sworn statement have actually been out in the ether for quite a while. I've known about this before the files were even released. But uh, and as far as I can tell, there's no corroboration. There's no eyewitnesses from what I could see, or any video footage or photos or anything like that. And if there is, again, they're probably also in Pam Bondi's fireplace by now. But she accuses, and I'm going to get very graphic here. She accuses Donald Trump of forcing her at age 13 years old to perform oral sex on him. Uh, and when she and when he tried to force her to do that and he pushed her head down, she bit him where the
Most men
sun,
do.
yeah,
Sorry.
when she bit him where the sun don't shine. And in response, she said that he beat her, that he hit her a few times, and that, and that he threatened to, kill her and bury her. Uh, all of that is in her sworn statement. And we can absolutely put that on our show notes if people want to see that, because that's been out there for a while. So even though Pam Bondi may not have released it, that's been out in the
So
ether for a
this
while.
person who has the sworn testimony, where are they now?
I have
Are
no
they
idea because this is a person who, like I said, the name Katie Johnson was an alias, and so I don't even know if that's even the real person's name, and I don't know where that investigation went. It
that's
took
a
place.
problem. Like,
Yeah,
because that's a problem on either end. Either
yeah,
that's a hearsay and someone said that person said that, but where is her testimony?
yeah. Or nobody,
Because that's the only way that you can say that this is evident.
yeah,
I'm
and
sorry, like
or
you
nobody
can't now.
investigated it, or nobody investigated it, and they should have.
But that's disgusting, and that's that needs to be. So where is that testimony? And why isn't anyone making a big deal about it?
Well, I don't know if we're making a big deal out of it. I know on the Pro Democracy podcast, they're talking about it everywhere. And members of Congress, I know Robert Garcia made mention of the fact that that was an accusation. He's the ranking member on the Oversight Committee.
Right.
He's made mention of the fact that this is not there, and he actually went to the Justice Department the other day to look at the unredacted files. And so. Uh, what I this was something that took place in the early 2000s. I want to say according to this testimony, maybe 2002, excuse me, 2003, and nobody investigated it from what I could tell.
Then it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, and and I'm not sure. I think this was also part of a civil litigation as well a few years after the event occurred. I don't know if there was a settlement or not. I don't, there are still things we don't know. We can post that sworn affidavit in our show notes for people who want to read it. I do caution that it is brutal, it is graphic. And so that's something we'll definitely just stay on top of. And I'm definitely curious to see what the Republicans on this committee, this oversight committee, put out from Hillary Clinton's testimony and from Bill Clinton's testimony. Because the concern and the reason why the Clintons wanted this public is because they would selectively edit, they would uh, basically spin whatever they said to suit the narrative they're trying to push, which is, of course, deflection and actually turning people's attention towards the Clintons and others when it really should be on Donald Trump, who's in the files over a million times.
Right? So,
And so,
absolutely.
yeah, so we'll stay on top of that. And then finally, we have a local story, which is, I don't quite know how this all began. And I'm sure people have seen the video by now in Washington Square Park where a snowball fight, I think it was a planned snowball fight. Somebody said that it was like an event.
Yeah,
And
it was in Union Square. There was snow.
yeah,
People
and
were,
yeah, I don't know if it was like a planned thing or what. I'm still kind of unclear on
but
certain aspects of it, but
the snowball fight, however, there was some people who were on the roof of the train station, and the police were called. And then that's kind of how the police got there. And then some kids started throwing snow at them. You look at videos, and it's not a good look.
no,
It's not a good look. And so the reaction from the mayor was, um, it was just a snowball fight, which I don't think that was a really wise thing for him to say. I think he should have made a little bit more of that. It wasn't a good look. I don't necessarily, I think it's kids being stupid, to be honest. I don't think,
I do
um,
too. Yeah.
there might have been a few, for my thing, it's just kids being stupid. But I think he should have said that this was something that was wrong and it wasn't I think he should have made a little bit more about it because the reaction from the police department was not good. And he needs the police on his side. And I know he has a good relationship with his police commissioner. And and she condemned it and they're going after they actually made an arrest. And somebody got charged with a felony for assaulting an officer. And but the thing that kind of pisses me off is um I think the mayor could have said it a little bit better. I don't think his words were great. But the media, it's on like it's everywhere. And it's like um it's like a bleed story. It's gonna like incite because you know what other people are saying now. The people who hate Mondani, this is just something, this is red meat for them to sink their teeth into. And they're like, "Ah,"
Well,
and it's like,
well,
oh,
that
relax.
well, that
And
was
you're
actually
gonna say what you're gonna say, and I'll let you say
no,
that.
but
But
that was the perfect thing when you were like, ah, that's what I
yeah,
think of them. Yeah, that's what I think of every time I think of them.
but so how dare they, and I know that two police officers went to the hospital, and there's a point where like you throw snowballs and it's like, stop, all right, enough, you
Hmm.
know. And I thought the police handled themselves very well, because these are stupid kids, and you saw a few of them like, all right, enough. Um, but then I think a few of them crossed the line, and so
No, I
um,
agree. Yeah, and I don't condone any kind of violence at all against any sort of law enforcement. And one could argue, throwing a snowball is an assault, unless otherwise agreed to. And so I don't agree with that with how what they did at all. I think that was, and who does that? Oh look, there's a police officer. Let me throw something at them. What a fucking
yeah,
stupid thing to do. But I also think the mayor was dismissive of any kind of concern that people expressed about it,
that's a good adjective. Yeah,
which I think was stupid on his part. I
yeah,
think I think he should have taken this far more seriously than he did. I realize it was just snowballs, but it's still, you don't want to send a message intentionally or not that it's
It's okay to throw
permissible. Yeah.
snowballs at police
Yeah,
officers. Like,
you don't
it's
want to
not.
send you don't want to send that message at all that that's permissible. But you brought up the fact that this is red meat for right wingers and for people who are already have a negative disposition towards Mamdani, and that's true. However, I will not take lectures about protecting law enforcement and public safety and respecting police from people who watched as police officers were brutalized at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Were
Yeah.
brutalized. Some of them died. We had one here on this podcast, Aquilino Gonell, who was rendered unable to work because of his injuries. And uh, and then adding insult to injury, the guy they voted for pardons the people who committed those assaults. And so I will not take lectures from anybody who would vote for a guy who would pardon people who would assault and hurt and commit violence towards police officers. Fuck that.
Yeah.
And you have they have no moral authority at all about this. And so whenever they say they back the blue, they don't fucking back the blue. That is just a racist dog whistle to say we don't want accountability for police officers who may violate the rights of racial minority groups. That is what that is.
I think it's getting too much air. I think the police commissioner and the mayor, I would be more concerned with this story if the two of them were having some conflict in words over this incident. I think, and we'll see what happens. But like I said, it's just it's fueling. So not a good look, not a good decision. Is it something to you know, pin him on? No, I don't think so. But they're going to.
Well,
And
definitely,
unfortunately, a
he
lot of
didn't
the
make it
police,
better.
the PBA, the sergeants, they're very much controlled by MAGA and a lot of so I'm hoping, they
Well, he didn't make it any better with his dismissiveness. If he had made a statement that was concise, that was firm, that was unequivocal about not uh, committing any act of violence toward any police officer, I think he would have been perhaps cut a break a little bit. But he was just to say, well, it's a snowball and that's not a crime. I think that's stupid.
yeah.
I think that was dismissive, and I think that, people will I think that's insulting. And he should have had a much better response. But again, I'm not going to take lectures from people who are perfectly fine with a guy who pardons thousands of people who assaulted and brutalized police officers. So fuck that. You have no perch on that issue. And Andrew Cuomo is also now back in the fray, criticizing
So is
Mamdani with this.
so is Adams. He made
Yeah,
a comment about it.
and fuck them both, honestly.
And that's the new phenomenon I don't like. I
Yeah,
really liked when politicians, when they left office, they kind of kept silent,
yeah.
Donald Trump broke that mold, and now everybody comes back and has something to say. It's like, like I remember for a time they respected the office and they were like, let that, that person's in charge, let them do, and Donald Trump broke that mold.
Yeah. Well, and yeah.
I also wanted to, before I forgot to say, I wanted to mention two things um, in, Mexico and Cuba. Um, One, Puerto Vallarta is coming back. I spoke to people in Puerto Vallarta and, restaurants are opening. Airports are opening, and it's kind of, they tend to think the people who live there, not the visitors or the media, but the people who live there seem to think that this was kind of a protest, if you can see it as that way, and like, for what happened, and then that was that. Um, because nothing happened the next day. It was kind of this. immediate response, and then that was that. So I hope that's the case because there's a lot of, you know, Mexico is wonderful, and the area of Puerto Vallarta is there's great cult, there's wonderful culture there. And I really like it there, and I hope, you were there with me. So
Mhm.
I really hope that that was just that. The other thing about Cuba, um, this thing on Instagram, Belly the Beast does a lot of reporting from Cuba, and there's also a lot of people, reporters in Cuba, documenting what's happening there because of what the U.S. is claim, So we have to really kind of watch out for that. But you heard about this boat that came from Florida, and then the Cuban government shot them down. And Marco Rubio's like, "We'll see." I was like, "Is this like a little mini Bay of Pigs invasion? Like, what's going on?"
I thought of
Um,
the Gulf of Tonkin with
yeah,
Vietnam. I thought of like some kind, or the explosion of the USS Maine, but one
yeah,
of
the
the,
Maine. I thought about
you
that
know,
too, and I'm like, "Oh no, remember the little
remember the
stone."
Maine.
But there's some other things that came out. Apparently, that boat was stolen from some in Key West. I also heard that there was someone who was trying to rescue like a family member, which I could kind of see like hey, get me out because, shit's going down there.
Hmm.
Um, but apparently, according to the Cuban government, that boat was heavily armed.
Oh,
So they had a lot of, they had a lot of weapons, and they shot at the when they were asked to be identified, they shot at the Cuban government first. So um, Rubio's kind of right now, which I like. He's going, want to find out some more information before he made a comment on it. That's unlike his other cabinet members who immediately make their assumptions about what's going on.
like Christy
So,
Noem, who called Alex Pretty a domestic terrorist.
right, right.
Hmm.
So we'll wait and see. But I was just hoping this is not going to be like a main scenario, like, oh, now we can go in. They killed an American citizen. I'm like, what about all those boats off of Venezuela that we just blew up?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and
remember
actually,
those?
I actually just saw, I didn't see Hillary Clinton's full statement, but I just saw one now that said that they asked her about Pizzagate. She said they asked her
Of
about
course they
Pizzagate.
did. Of course they did. That was for QAnon. That's why they did that. They needed the QAnon people. That was their. They needed their red meat. So.
I wish
Um,
I could name the episode that.
red meat. So red meat. But Cuba too, also I love Cuba. I love the people of Cuba and the culture, and I'm really concerned about what's happening to them over there and how the US is going to portray them. I don't really give a crap about, Marco Rubio's family, I found out, moved to the US during the Batista regime. They didn't even escape during Castro.
Yeah.
So like, like eh, that's so, that was the 1950s, that the Cuban Revolution. You know, the let the people, and Cuba's resilient. They're tough there. They're not revolting. They're not, running to the US. They want to preserve what they have. So I wish them well. I
Yeah.
really,
Oh, and
and if anyone,
I hope
you know,
it's not a situation where we're trying to encroach
I hear they're
ourselves.
going to organize a flotilla like they do to Gaza. I
Mhm.
saw a couple of things on Instagram. I I'd help. Like, that's something I would definitely get behind. Um, because, I've been there, and I definitely don't want anything happening to the Cuban people. They're good people. So,
Yeah.
um, and on
Well,
that note, I just wanted to add those two,
yeah.
you know, in
Well,
our world of doom.
well, and this is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
I'm Nancy Richards, and we'll see you next week, hopefully with not no more snow.
Yes.